you've watched the Toy Story movies, we can safely say that, at least in part, you had a happy childhood. And of course, you know that. But do you know all the incredible, closely guarded secrets hidden within the universe of Pixar's biggest franchise? For instance, one of the biggest secrets that Pixar doesn't want anyone to know is that Woody was originally supposed to be the villain in the first movie's story. Instead of a sheriff who maintains law and order, Andy's favorite toy was going to be more like one of those Wild West bank robbers. Buzz, on the other hand, was always meant to be an action figure with heroic values and perfect conduct, just like we know him, but he was going to be much smaller than Woody and would wear a red spacesuit. The idea was that Woody would get so jealous of Buzz for being Andy's new favorite toy that he would hatch a plan to try and get rid of the Space Ranger, if you know what I mean. But that idea ended up being scrapped, and Toy Story delivered one of the most beautiful tales of friendship of all time, without a doubt. As for Andy, he was supposed to be a kid with glasses, and would have had a slightly different appearance from the one we know from the movies. He would have had a more studious vibe, but like any kid, he would have loved spending time having fun with his favorite toys. Now Jessie, who is one of the main characters in Toy Story 5, would also have had a radically different look from the red-headed cowgirl with freckles on her face that we know. To tell you the truth, the character was going to be a sort of cowgirl Barbie, since she would wear entirely pink outfits and have blonde hair and blue eyes. However, the Pixar animators believed that this look might not match all the vitality and energy the character was going to need. Getting back to Buzz, there's a fact that some Disney Pixar fans have no idea about. Did you know that it's officially confirmed that the Toy Story franchise movies and the movie Lightyear take place in the same universe? The logic works sort of like this. In this reality, Lightyear is a real movie that young Andy watched in theaters back in 1995, and not in 2022, which is the year it was released here for us. This way, after watching the movie about the human Buzz, Woody's owner asked his mom for the character's action figure, which she ended up giving him for his birthday, as we see in the first Toy Story. In that 2022 Buzz movie, which honestly is pretty bad, Zurg, who is Buzz's greatest enemy, is actually the Space Ranger himself, just coming from the future. This is vastly different from what we see in Toy Story, where the villain Zurg reveals that he is actually Buzz's father during that elevator fight with the second Buzz. But the interesting fact isn't even that, since you probably already know it. The cool trivia is that this is actually a nod to Star Wars, where Darth Vader reveals that he is the father of Luke Skywalker, the hero. The truth is that Star Wars and Toy Story actually share a much older connection than that. That's because Pixar, the studio that created the movie about the most famous toys in the world, was originally the computer graphics division of Lucasfilm, George Lucas's company, the creator of Star Wars, who sold it to Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple. So, did you know about that one? Still talking about Buzz, there are a few very interesting facts involving the Toy Star Command Ranger. The first of them is that several versions for the character's role were created, where he would have had a much more childish face, completely different from the one we know and love. On top of that, he had other wildly different name suggestions before Buzz Lightyear was chosen. Among them were options for him to be called Tempest Morph, or even Larry Lunar. Honestly, I just can't imagine Buzz not being called Buzz. The cool part is that the exact same thing goes for Woody, since according to Disney itself, his initial name was slated to be Dummy. But somebody, at some point, had the brilliant idea to change the character's name, and for that, we are eternally grateful, whoever was responsible for that wonderful change. Now seriously, after all these details and Easter eggs, I think we deserve your subscription, don't we? Did you know that the very first toy in the history of Toy Story wasn't going to be any of the ones from Woody's gang that lived in Andy's room? The first toy created by Pixar that ended up giving rise to this franchise we all love was named Tinny, and he was a musical tin toy soldier who was completely tormented by the baby who owned him. But the fact is, he ended up being scrapped from being a part of the first 3 Buzz and Woody movies, only making a cameo appearance in Toy Story 4, in the toy bar where Bo Peep takes the sheriff. Actually, if we take it literally, we could say that the 1995 movie that would revolutionize the animation industry is a sequel to the story of Tin Toy. Does this mean that the first movie's name should have actually been Tin Toy 2? Or should Toy Story 5 be called Toy Story 6? Now, I'm just confused. And the truth is, the idea really was to make a movie that had Tinny himself as the main character, instead of Woody. However, since the musical toy soldier, even back in 1995, 30 years ago, could already be considered an old-fashioned toy for kids of that era, the Pixar animators decided that Tinny would transform into a military-style action figure, somewhat like Combat Carl, who actually ended up appearing in several movies of the franchise, including Toy Story 5. But the folks in charge still weren't satisfied, and they decided to evolve him into some kind of space ranger, thus creating the concepts we've already mentioned here in the video that ultimately became Buzz Lightyear. Long story short, Tinny evolved until he became Buzz. That is definitely pretty insane, wouldn't you agree? A lot of people have no idea, but did you know that the second Toy Story movie was almost deleted forever? And when we say forever, we really mean forever. This happened because during production, an animator accidentally ran a deletion command on Pixar's servers, wiping out nearly 90% of the Toy Story 2 files. The entire movie was only saved because the technical director, Galen Sussman, was working from home after having a baby and happened to have a backup copy of the project on her personal computer. I could be wrong, but I think someone almost got fired. You probably remember that Barbie and Ken starred as one of the best couples in the animation world in Toy Story 3. However, if we jog our memories a bit more, we'll remember that in the second movie, Barbie dolls show up in droves when the guys from Woody's gang end up finding a house full of Barbies throwing a party. But what you almost certainly don't know is that the original idea was for Barbie to be one of the most important characters in the first movie as well. The plan was for the most famous doll in the world to show up during the climax of the first Toy Story, driving her Corvette to save Woody and Buzz from Sid's dog. The catch is that Mattel, the company that owns the doll, denied the rights because they thought the movie was going to be a box office flop, and because they didn't want the doll to gain a fixed personality on screen. The funny thing is that simply after the roaring success of the first franchise movie in theaters, Mattel begged for Barbie to be included in Toy Story 2, and since then, she has been in every movie in the franchise, even if only in flashbacks, as was the case in Toy Story 4. Ken and Barbie are probably still running the toys over at Sunnyside to this day. At least, that's what we hope. Speaking of the daycare that is the epicenter of the events in the third Toy Story movie, it's practically impossible to forget the former dictator of the place, and certainly the scariest character in the entire franchise, Lotso the bear. What most Pixar fans have no idea about is that, as incredible as it sounds, the purple bear was created 15 years before being used in Toy Story 3. In reality, he was created to be one of the characters in the first movie. And the reason he wasn't used is because 30 years ago, animation creation technology was still very basic, and creating Lotso's fur was something that just wasn't possible yet. So much so that we can notice that all the characters have a plastic appearance, which makes sense since they are all toys. But Lotso is also made of fabric, especially when it comes to his fur. So, due to this situation, the character was lovingly kept in Pixar's drawer for a long 15 years before landing as the evil mastermind at Sunnyside and causing some kids to even have nightmares. The lingering question is, would he have just been one of Woody's friends in the first movie, or would he have already been used as a villain? One day, when I go to Disney, I'm going to ask Woody and Buzz about that. Without a doubt, one of the best characters in the entire Toy Story franchise is Rex. He is as fearful as he is funny. The detail here is that originally, the character was slated to be scary or a bully, but the writer in charge suggested that it would be way funnier if he were a neurotic dinosaur with an inferiority complex and a dread of confrontation. Said and done, Rex is just really, really funny. The kicker is that this writer was none other than Joss Whedon, who became famous for directing The Avengers, one of the biggest hits in Marvel history. Nice one, Bao Joss, for both Rex and The Avengers. The famous Totoro plush from the classic My Neighbor Totoro by Studio Ghibli shows up in several scenes in Bonnie's room in the last two movies of the franchise. The detail that few know about this very special cameo is that it was only possible because legendary Japanese director Hayao Miyazaki and John Lasseter, former head of Pixar, are great friends in real life. And it was for this reason that Studio Ghibli allowed the use of the character in the movie without charging absolutely anything for copyrights or licensing, something practically unheard of in the Hollywood industry. We'll wrap up here, but if you also love everything involving pop culture, check out these two video options we're leaving for you on your screen. You can watch either of the two, you're sure to love them.